Hi, in this video, I just try to go through our lecture material for the Monday lecture, which is interrupted by the technical failure of my computer. So I will go through each slide, but it's not necessary. I will explain every sentence presented here. So most of things, if they're available in the textbook chapters, then I probably just skip it or just briefly talk about that. So first, let's see the merchandise. Merchandise actually includes the macro merchandise or cross merchandise. So the macro can be easily understand if we talk about the store level, how to allocate the shelf space to the different items. And then need to consider the customer differences and the other differences among the markets. So basically, we are talking about about the demand or know about the market. And across merchandise, retailers carry complementary goods and services to encourage shoppers to buy more. So the cross merchandise mainly related to maybe your topic, category management or assortment planning. So the merchandise management is a focus of the stock management. So now let's see, merchandise management actually is a process. So the process attempts to offer the appropriate quantity. So here we're talking about the quantities and the right merchandise in the right place at the right time. If you want to add one more, it should be the right price. And then normally the buyers, divisional merchandise manager and the general merchandise manager will be involved. And the retailer operations management actually controls what product to allocate, where, and how many units or how much you're going to store them in the individual locations in your logistics network. So now let's have an overview about merchandise management. So first, the buying organization, including, of course, we mentioned the GMM and the DMM. So we actually will talk more in this lecture about the classification or may related to the assortment planning. And then we're also talking about all the main focus in this course may be the SKUs. So this is a smallest unit of the stock management. So in general, the planning unit of merchandise management actually is category. So that's important. We started to talk about the ways to manage categories. You can use a category manager to management, or you can use category captain. So this is actually addressed in the textbook. So if you would like to know more, and go back to your book. So we'll continue. Then we can continue to talk about the merchandise management performance. So here we're actually talking about the category performance. So for example, we can use a measure or KPIs, or we see its performance measurements. It's called a gross margin return on investment, inventory investment. So here this I actually means two things, is inventory investments. So from here we can start to always talking about the cost, the turnover rate, and so on for your stocks. So of course the higher gross margin return on inventory investment achieved with gross margin and inventory turnover. So this performance is definitely affected by the gross margin and the inventory turnover. So you actually can see By definition, the gross margin return on inventory investments is gross margin percentage times the sales to stock ratio. Furthermore, the gross margin percentage is calculated by the ratio between the gross margin and the net sales. And then the net sale and the sales to stock ratio is the ratio net sales and average inventory at a cost. So here actually leave you a question. So what is or how to evaluate your average inventory? So in the textbook, they talk about different ways. So in general, you can actually do a timely average. So if you can calculate a total time, the average inventory at the end of the day or end of the period, and then you actually can time them up and divide it by T. This is not a strict mathematical formula. It's just an illustration to show you how to calculate average inventory. In the textbook, it's talking about if you know the 306 days per year, every day's inventory by the end of the day, then the average inventory will be the average over the 306 days. So that's actually very important values. You need to know the average inventory level. Sometimes it's directly become a KPI. So it can be a direct KPI in many companies. Of course, the higher the average inventory, it's more expensive. And then rearrange this calculation, then we know the gross margin in the end. So the gross margin return on the inventory investment will be related directly to your average inventory at cost. So we actually need to understand this very well. In the textbook, there are two examples to be used to show the gross margin return. So now you can see we're talking about the fresh bakery. So bakery products or gourmet. So it's two categories. So that means this GM ROI actually is at the category level. But of course, you can actually try the other levels. So assortments or SKU level, and you can do more. Then furthermore, there are a lot of other further analysis you can apply. So here we can see given the sales for the fresh bakery bread is 1 million, and then for gourmet actually is 200,000, and the gross margin for the fresh bakery is 200,000, and for gourmet is 100,000. And the average inventory is also given. So if you know this is at a cost, so 100,000 and 50,000. Obviously, you can see the fresh bakery has a higher inventory cost, and the gourmet has a lower inventory cost. And now you can see when you calculate the GM ROI, in the end, we can see a fresh bakery bread actually has a 200% the return, gross margin return, and the gourmet has actually also 200. So they actually have a same GM ROI. That's because they actually balance out for the gross margin. So now you can see the gross margin for the bakery actually is higher, and for the gourmet actually is lower. But of course, the sales for the gourmet is also lower. Now you can see the fresh bread, fresh bakery bread actually has a very high stock sales to stock ratio, and the gourmet canned food actually has a higher gross margin. So in the end, you actually get the same performance for the two categories. So now we can summarize this. So if you try to measure the sales to stock ratio, typically you can do that at annual basis. So annual basis, and here we actually explained how to calculate the average inventory. And the bakery department in a supermarket typically has a higher sales to stock ratio and a low gross margin. And then you can also compare with gourmets, and you can also compare with fashion, if I compare with any other products. So this chapter has a very high level aggregated conclusions. So here we can start with these strategies or the general insights. So in order to improve the merchandise management performance, actually, for example, we just try to improve the GM ROI, then you can actually improve inventory turnover. So the suggestion is to reduce inventory or increase sales. That's almost the common sense for the retailers. If you hold less inventory, but you can sell more, and keep existing SKUs but reduce backup stock costs, or buy merchandise more often in smaller quantities. So we will see how these measurements can be implemented later. And then, of course, increase sales by, but do not increase inventory proportionally. So it's actually is equals with the first suggestion. And the increase gross margin, so increase prices, reduce cost of goods sold, and reduce customer discounts. So in this course, I would just think you can think about how to reduce cost of goods sold. So all the costs may be related to the logistics process. So this diagram shows the merchandise planning process. So normally the process start from forecasting the demand, and then develop an assortment plan, and then determine appropriate inventory level and product availability. So here this chapter just have a very rough discussion about that. We can see more because it should also be considered with different performance measures. And then develop a plan for managing inventory. And here, if this is the policy, so that's actually implementation. And allocate merchandise for stores, so that's obviously the operational level decisions. And then buy merchandise, so that's basically supply chain related. We also talk about supply chain collaboration, and monitor and evaluate the performance and make adjustments. If you want to continue to use GM ROI, so you can further look into that. Otherwise, you can have other performance measures. So another purpose of this lecture is to actually distinguish different types of merchandise. So we're talking about the basic merchandise, or we say it's a staple. So for example, this regular products you need to actually renew in your shop in a longer setting period. For example, the milk, or we call it dairy products, or other types products. But this is more stationary. The demand is more stationary. And then we're talking about the fashion merchandise. So that's actually not only fashion, but a lot of products they may have a fashion features or characteristics. So normally have a relatively short selling season, and then long lead time or long production preparation. So we normally call it lead time. And then the seasonal merchandise. So we are talking about the summer. For example, you sell more beer or ice cream or gardening tools in summer. So many different types. So that's actually the main merchandise categories we will address with different inventory policies or models. So here we'll just quickly remind you the stock replenishment policy is always related to the types of the merchandise. So regarding to different types of merchandise, so you should have different inventory control or replenishment policies. So the staple merchandise, so regular products carried by a retailer, so you basically can sell that for multiple years or regularly longer selling period. So here we're talking about dairy products, bakery products, or the canned foods. Of course, there are also non-food, like toilet products and so on. And then here we're talking about you can imply a basic stock policy. So basic stock lists specify the inventory level, the color, brand, style, category, size, package, and so on. So this actually tells the exact SKU level policies. And then normally you can do a continuous replenishment. So if you have a inventory, basically have a threshold as long as, so here is inventory, here is time, as long as your inventory drop to the certain value, for example R, so here inventory less than R, then you trigger an order, then you probably need to wait to a certain time, and then you continue to, and then your order will come to a certain level. So you do not need to know what happened here for the time being, but we'll explain this later. So this is called a continuous replenishment. So we will actually focus on this course because a quantitative method is not a focus of your program. So we will just talk about the general order up to level policy. So this is also called base stock policy. This is actually broadly applied in industry. Furthermore, we can see there are also fashion and seasonal merchandise. So although you can distinguish fashion and seasonal merchandise, but they also have the similar characteristics. They normally sell more in a relatively short selling season. So the fashion products maybe just become obsolete after one season. The seasonal merchandise may come back on fashion again in next cycle. So that's a difference. But mainly we use a similar method to manage these two types of merchandise. So the examples including apparels, furniture, automotive, and others. And for decision on assortment, of course, you need to decide the product lines, styles, designs, and colors. And then at the SKU level, you also need to work on the model stock plan. So here we are talking about the simplest inventory policy called news window model. So in next lecture, we will focus on news window model. So now let's see a little bit about retailer assortment strategies. So the strategy mainly related to the width of the assortment and the depth of the assortment. So assortment can be wide and deep or narrow and shallow. And then you can also see this will normally related to the type of the retailers it is. So the merchandise management is all about the control the timing and the decisions allocation decisions. So the timing related to the forecast. Based on your forecast, you should know when it's the peak seasons and when you should order and how long time do you need to actually deliver. And then you need to know these regular items or the special orders, or you know the stock turnover, and you should also take into account the discounts, the promotion decisions, and the advertisement plan, and the efficiency of inventory procedures. And then the allocation decisions include how much merchandise to place on the sales floor. This actually is a very systematic question to address. And then any company, any store, if you go to the real business, you got a chance actually to further look into their practice. Always some chance to actually improve. And how much merchandise to place in the stock room. So that is a sales floor, so stock room, for example, your warehouse. So we're talking about central warehouse, distribution center, and maybe you have just a public warehouse or storage. So it's up to your business. And whether to use a warehouse or distribution center, this actually is a logistics decision we have addressed previously in the lecture 2. So if you do not have a distribution center or warehouse, and how will you actually do? Can you actually do a vendor management inventory? So a lot of questions interesting. So developing an assortment plan is to choose a set of SKUs that a retailer will offer in a merchandise category in each of its stores and from its website. So here, the decision actually is rather complicated. So it's like, how do you choose the SKUs, and then how wide and how deep, and so on. So there is a typo here, I believe. So I just cross this word. So rights. So here is a textbook example about an assortment plan for girls' jeans in a shop. So now you can see you can distinguish the SKUs for the styles, price levels, and fabric, and then colors. So in these 2 slides, you can see you have a skinning styles and a bootcut styles and different price levels and so on. So that actually means in each assortment you may have end up with many different SKUs. So this is the assortment SKUs, varieties based on the bootcut. So of course the styles may also have more options. So how to develop a assortment plan then? So they start with determine variety and assortment. So first need to edit the assortment. So you normally have a lot of options and potential SKUs, and which SKU should be included. Then you need to consider retailer strategy. For example, Costco has very few SKUs. Best Buy has many SKUs. So in Denmark, you can think about different retailers, and then you can see large retailers. So Maxine and Birka. Now you can see if we talk about jeans, G-E-A-N, jeans. So what's the difference between their assortment plan? And then look into the performance measures. So that's very important. So you need to actually see how your investment will bring the return to you. So now you can see Costco offers a limited assortment at low prices, increasing its inventory turnover and lowering its costs. So normally you buy a big packages, and then the shop doesn't need to open the packages, and then you also sell more probably. Moreover, you need to think about the complementary merchandise. So of course, you actually sell the main products at the same time. You may also sell more accessory items. It's especially interesting in electronic stores. Or so like we're talking about Ear Giganten or these shops. And the effects of assortment size on buying behavior. So this actually needed to further do some analysis. I do not think this actually just like intuitive perceptions. So that's definitely need some analytical work. So, for example, you need to look into the large assortment gives more opportunity for customer finding what they want. Large assortment provides more informative shopping experience. Large assortment appealing to customers who seek variety. And then these are all the positive things, but you also need to know a large assortment also means a higher cost and more operating cost. So you need to have a SKU level rationalization to indeed select the items in the assortment. Physical characteristics of the store should also be considered. So different stores may hold different assortments based on the location and the customer or the market. So this is about the assortment plan. Of course, I did not teach any method for you to actually choose the best optimal assortment. However, that's possible. So a lot of research to actually study how to optimize your assortment in the category. So if you're interested, you probably need to check the literature and see if the research method in the academic level can be applied in reality. So here we basically later on use a managerial insights type published paper to see what other factors you should include apart from what we have addressed here. So that's about the assortment plan. Next, we are going to talk about a stock plan. So here we start to talk about setting inventory and product availability levels. So that's basically my working areas. So we focus on the inventory or the stock management. So in the retailer management perspective, it's called a model stock plan. So model stock plan is a number of each SKU. So this plan determines the number of each SKU in the assortment plan. So normally this is determined by the buyer. So the buyer wants available for purchase in each store. And then this plan includes different stock plans for different store sizes. So even for the chains in different locations, they may have a different size of the stores. So this stock plan should related to the store size. So this is a model stock plan for the girls' jeans. So now we are actually there's missing some information in this table. So here on the column is the sizes. So this American size says 1 to 4 until 14, and then the vertical columns, you have the columns, the lines of your SKUs. So we're actually talking about a specific SKU, and then the model stock plan shows actually the proportions. So here you can see percentage of each size and length combination, and then now you can see you have the different sizes in total. For this item, you have 429 units in stock, and then you have 2% for the size 1, the short length, and you have 3% of size 8. So size 8 and long long pants. So this how you interpret these numbers here. So that's also a stock plan normally implemented in a store. So we continue to see the model stock plan. So the product availability is actually explicitly determined by the inventory policies. So here we should know you should have a backup stock, you have a safety stock, you have a product availability or levels of support measurements actually to evaluate your product availability. So this is not the focus of this lecture, but we will talk about that later in other lectures when we talk about inventory policies. So here we just mentioned that. So here this graph, this figure, shows the inventory investment relationships between the inventory investments here and the product availability. So the product availability is basically if we use a more academic word, this is actually called in-stock probability. So we're talking about if one customer wants to buy this item, the availability, the probability this item will be in stock actually is 95%. Then your corresponding inventory cost or inventory investment is approximately 300 millions, if we say so. And then if you want to bring the availability up to 99%, you actually need to increase the inventory investment significantly. So that's what we're going to address in the future. We're talking about how do you evaluate your performance. So how do you balance the cost? So if you can see if 95% is good enough, probably you just live with 95% because it's too expensive. It's a lot more expensive to actually bring your fill rate or service level up to 100%. So for each SKU, for the retailer needs to actually establish a control system to manage the inventory. So the control system is a relevant topic we are going to talk about in the later of this course. It's called the ERP system, or we call it Management Information Systems. So now most retailers have this kind of control system already. So the workers and employees normally just need to put numbers in. And a certain analytical work maybe is necessary. So here we're talking about the first need to have a merchandise budget plan, and the budget plan shows the budget in each month, and then you should also have a sales forecast, and then you should have a promotion plan, and also you have the inventory control plan. So furthermore, you should have an open to buy system. So in this system, it presents inventory levels and then purchase the merchandise delivery schedules. So basically, you know what is the orders in the delivery, under delivery, to avoid redundant ordering, and how much has been sold to customers. So this actually the budget plan. Here you see basically a bit more about budget plan. So the buyers should have actually a book to follow how much has been spent and how much left. So next step is to actually allocate the merchandise to stores. So you should have actually kind of a forecast for the sales, for the demand for each store. Then you can actually somehow allocate their inventory to different stores. So this should be based on the annual sales and also the physical characteristics of the merchandise or the depth of the assortment and the level of product availability. So normally we call this service level. So these are all very general criteria you need to know about. And then furthermore, is for allocate the merchandise to stores, you should also consider the types of the merchandise allocated. So you should consider demographic information about the stores, and you should know the timing of merchandise allocation based on the seasonality and based on the consumer characteristics, and also of course the payback cycle. So this graph shows the diversity of the allocation quantities to different stores comparing with the average. So here the green lines shows the chain's average. So for example, for the size XS, and then average is about 12, and then the average is about 12, and for the specific store X, then actually it's only less than 5 or probably 5. So that means this store actually historically probably sold lights small sizes. And then you can see the size M sells actually the average, allocated the average quantity for the size M fashion item. And then for the store X, it's actually higher than the average. So somehow we can think about in this area, in this stores area, in general sells more store size, big size items. Therefore, it's necessary to consider the difference of the stores when the retailer allocates the specific item to the specific store. This graph shows the difference between the sales across different regions. The blue lines shows the sales in the Midwest, and the brown lines shows the sales in the West. So now you can see the sales season actually changes dramatically. So you can see in the summer, in the Midwest, actually sell more, but in the winter or the colder autumn, you actually sell more in the West. So of course, when the retailer allocates the items to the different stores, you should also consider this difference. So that's all about the forecasts. We will definitely discuss about the forecast next lecture.